So two of my favorite On shoes are the On Cloudmonster and the On Cloudsurfer 7, and I really wish that there was a shoe that combined both of them. You get the more cushioned and stable midsole of the Cloudmonster, but you get that softer and smoother midsole from the Cloudsurfer 7. Well, I think On's done just that with the Cloudeclipse. So I've done a handful of runs in the shoe and I'm ready to give you my first impressions, but just a quick disclaimer that On did send these shoes to me for the purpose of review, but they're not telling me what to say or seen in the footage, so all my thoughts are my own. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the specs. The stack height is 44mm in the heel and 39 in the forefoot, measured by the World Athletics Standard. The drop is 5mm. The weight is 9.7 ounces in a men's size 9. The price is $180, and I put this in the Max Cushion Trainer category. Alright, now let's take a deeper look in the What's New overview. So the upper is engineered mesh, very similar to the Cloudsurfer 7, but with a stretchy knitted tongue. The midsole uses Helion foam and the domino-like Cloudtech phase cutouts. It also has a plastic shank on the bottom to act as a torsion control system and add some more stability. The outsole has a decent amount of grippy rubber in the forefoot and heel. Talking about size, I went with my usual size 12 in the shoe, and I thought it fit true to size for the most part. I think that the length was maybe a hair long, but the biggest thing to note was the width of the shoe. I thought it was kind of a pretty roomy shoe, and I did have to crank down the laces to get a better lockdown. So if you're someone that does like a snugger fit in their shoe, you might even want to try going down half a size. Now, talking about the ride and my first impressions of this shoe, I thought that this rocker and this Cloudtech phase technology really helped give the shoe a smooth heel to toe transition. I liked the amount of cushion and the Helion foam underfoot, but it's not as kind of marshmallow-like you'd find in the Hoka Clifton or the Asics Nimbus 25. I thought it was a little bit firmer than that, but still definitely a lot of cushion and a very nice soft ride underfoot. So I think that this midsole is pretty versatile. It does have this bottom plate, the speed board down there to help make it a little more stable. And I wouldn't say that the foam itself is super plush and spongy. So when you go on some of those slower paces, it is soft, but like I mentioned, not like super pillowy. But when you do pick up the pace, you do notice some of that responsiveness. So I think it can probably handle most types of run. You have that extra cushion for those long runs, those recovery days. And like I said, that little extra responsiveness when you're picking up the pace or for daily training. But I don't know if it'll necessarily be the best at any one of those. Maybe best for long runs. I don't know. I'll have to put more miles on it and find out. But that's my first impressions. Let's go ahead and compare it to a couple of the other On shoes I mentioned. So first up is the Cloudmonster. So before the shoe came along, I think this was like their max stack shoe. It was their highest cushion, most cushioned shoe, and this comes along, adds a few extra millimeters, and this is now the king of cushion on On's lineup. I'd say that the On Cloudeclipse is much smoother thanks to that Cloudtech phase midsole. This just has those regular flat parallel to the ground Cloudtech pods on it, while this one has those that kind of match your gait, and that does help make a smoother ride in my opinion. Another difference is that this has a full length speed board in the middle of it, while this one, like I mentioned, had that bottom loaded shank, and I think that helps make this shoe feel a little bit softer overall, while this one's a little bit firmer. I do think that they're very similar shoes, and I think they do cover very similar use cases though. I think what it'll come down to is if you liked the Cloudmonster but wished it had just a little more cushion and maybe a little softer, then you'll probably like the Cloudeclipse. And next up is the Cloudsurfer 7. So these two shoes look very, very similar, and it doesn't help that they're pretty much the exact same color that I have right here, but there are some pretty big differences between these two shoes. The upper isn't really one of those that I'd say they are pretty similar. The main difference will be that the On Cloudeclipse has a knitted stretchy tongue and the lace loops are a piece of string, while the Cloudsurfer 7 has a more padded tongue and tends to have the more traditional lace loops on there. Moving down to that midsole though, we do have the Cloudtech phase technology on both, But like I mentioned, the Cloudeclipse is going to have a higher stack height, and it's going to have the addition of that shank in the bottom, that speed board, while this one does not have that. So I think this definitely helps make the shoe more stable, but I think it does kind of take away a little bit of that really squishy, bouncy feeling that you got in the Cloudsurfer 7. But the trade-off to that is more stability. When I was going around tight corners or some even terrain on the Cloudsurfer 7, I thought it felt super unstable. I was going back and forth, while I did not have that issue here with the Cloudeclipse. So again, I do feel like the Cloudsurfer 7 is a little bit softer and squishier than the Cloudeclipse, but when I was on my long runs in the Cloudsurfer, I was wishing there was a little more underfoot, and that's where the Cloudeclipse does come in and give you that extra protection and that cushion. So I think it's going to come down to, if you want something that's maybe a little closer to the ground, have a little extra squish and bounce to it, you like the Cloudsurfer 7. If you want something with that extra stack height and maybe a little more stable, you should think about the On Cloudeclipse. So wrapping it all up here, I would say that, like I've kind of mentioned this whole video, the On Cloudeclipse kind of takes the parts that I liked most about the Cloudmonster and the Cloudsurfer and merged them together into one shoe. It has that high stack height, it's more stable, but you still have that Cloudtech flow and no plate in the middle, so it's a bit of a softer ride. And I think I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again, that On is actually making real running shoes now. They're not just athleisure shoes. I do think it can maybe be a hair softer, but overall, I've been pretty happy with the On Cloudeclipse, and I'm going to continue putting more miles on it so that I can give you my full review. But I want to hear what you think. Are you going to pick a pair of the Cloudeclipse up? Have you already tried it? Go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on running.